Hello, welcome to the Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to Stream Street Day, as the 14 Dead Souls seems incredulous at the prospect of 168. We have been live for 168 days. And as we know, tomorrow's the exciting day because tomorrow is 169. And the Honest Wargamer crew, you know, we don't mind.
It's a sacred number to us, isn't it? Much like, the corn gods have, corn is 8, Slanesh is 6, Nurgle 7, and Zeech is 9. The Honest Wargamer sacred number is 69.
69.
So, we're looking forward to that day.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the day when I accidentally roll up to a table and I've just got 69 attacks. In fact, I might intentionally design units so that they have, at max capacity, 69 attacks, and then just count down from there. I cannot wait for day 6,969, as Born Again Manchild said. Sorry about that. My throat's still struggling a bit. And anyway, hello everyone, welcome to the show. Welcome to Stream Street Day 168. Very, very happy to be here. I'm joined by the wonderful Nick Pert. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. I'm all good.
Okay,
How are
good.
you?
Yeah, I'm good. I've been up for it since early. I've been carrying boards with Nathan Prescott, and he did things like, "Oh, let's carry 2," and I was like, "Yeah, let's carry 2." But really, I was like, "No, I don't want to carry 2. That's so heavy." So yeah, that's been fun. I've been enjoying that. We for
What are the boards
T-Sport...
for? Are they these for the commentary booth?
No. That's different. That's a different type of board. This board is, so you know how there are 4 tables. They're sat out in effectively a square. So what we've done is we've built a cross between them out of boards, and they're going to separate the 4 tables. So that's going to be really, really COVID proof. So the 8 players will be completely separated by these big boards. So they'll be they're seamless, so like they can't get around. And the only way to get to them is like around. So I think that's going to be like a really safe way. And also means if other people want to come and use the venue at other points or play games, we can also guarantee that everyone's going to be safe. It's also really useful. Like it'll look really nice when when you do like big side shots. There'll be like this nice like white backdrop, so that'll look nice. Like presentation is also a really large part of it as well. So it's like, and then also it'll stop the noise between all 4 tables so that the players should be able to concentrate. We should be able to get better audio. So there's like a load of positives. It's just a lot more money and a lot more time and a lot more effort, but it should be worth it. The idea is that it's like, it's spot on effectively. If that makes sense for everyone. You shouldn't carry more than 10 kilograms of ungainly weight, Rob. Report to your gaffer to the HSSE. I will. I've got my OSHA card now. I don't know if that's right. And we're starting the Warhammer Union sometime soon, Nick. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're thinking about getting on strike, aren't we? And just hopefully making Nathan do everything.
Yeah, or fish. Nathan or fish is the plan. Yeah. But apart from that, I've been really good. But because I've worked morning till night, I haven't had much opportunity to do a lot of Warhammering. But we are going to talk 40k today. But I do have in front of me. So I don't know if anyone went a bit mental. I did at the time when you were able to buy all of the what were they called? They were the Heresy box sets.
Yeah, the Heresy box sets.
Betrayal at Calth.
Yeah, that's it.
And there was another one. So I went pretty nuts. Like, I think I had Games Workshop discount at the time, maybe. But I was always a big Heresy fan, so I ended up buying, I don't know, like 4 or 5 boxes. Nick, you bought some Marines off me before, and I've still got tons more, right?
Yeah, I did buy some Marines. Yeah, I don't think I bought one of those box sets. And I think might have bought one of those box sets. But then, bought a load of those style Marines off eBay that people were buying them and chopping them up as eBay scalpers. I think they're Mark III Marines are my favourite ones. They're my favourite style of Marine armour from the Heresy. Obviously, like the big sort of side shoulder plates on their shoulder pauldrons.
Yeah, they're just awesome. So I sprayed all mine gold in an attempt to do a Nikos style like generic army. So I don't know what really colors to do on top of gold. I don't know if you've got any suggestions. Like I was thinking maybe a brass or a bronze, or I don't really know. situation. So I'm going to do that while we talk. But I now, because of no, shoulder pad fell off. But because of the new update to Marines, Nick, it feels like this box set and all of those Marines I've got lying around seem far more viable. What do you think? Like,
literally doubled in value.
yeah, doubled in value. So I'm really happy about that because I must have maybe 100 just on foot Marines, a bunch of these terrible Contemptors, like terrible kits, but they're just like fun little dreadnoughts. So that's cool. And I'm a big fan of dreadnoughts, so I'm just going to get them painted up. That's kind of where I'm at now with some 40k. I've still got the Death Guard on the go, and I've still got the Orcs, so I'm very comfortable with that. But these would just be a really fun little like side project to do sometimes, I think.
Yeah, Marines are quite nice to paint as well. Like easy models to paint because there's just lots of flat panels and things like that. And Marines always look cool. I think in terms of like the new codex coming out in October, it's hard to tell a little bit how good. Like two wound Marines, like 2 wound tactical Marines and Devastators, and that sound great on paper. But obviously we don't know the new context of the codex because Games Workshop, they might be giving with one hand but taking away from the other. Obviously, the last couple of years with the Primaris Marines and all those new units, they've been shoehorning those into different codexes and stuff like that, and making them objectively better than old Marines. If they double the wounds of the old Marines now, are they just going to use? Is the same pattern going to repeat itself? Where in this codex, the new Primaris Marines are still better objectively and points efficiency wise than the old Marines. I would imagine so, but it does mean at least people's old Marine Army collections are a little bit more viable on the tabletop and almost as good as Primaris, hopefully. So hopefully that's the case anyway. But I still think that the Primaris style Marine Army is probably going to be better competitively.
It's whether or not they're able to even compete. I think is the real question. That's like, and until we do get that new book, you can't really tell, which is just a giant shame. Like it's because you wish they would let you know. Just be like, don't bother, lads. Don't paint them up. And you're like, come on, like, just give me something. But I think just being able to play with them, I think, is good because it also means that I've effectively, in my mind, and I don't know about everyone else in the chat, I've got money back. If you like I was looking at it like this is just money wasted now, but now I feel like I've got money back, which is cool because I'm like, okay, I could do some really fun stuff now, which is so I'm excited about it. Anyway, thank you everyone for joining us live. Thanks to everyone on Twitch. You guys are great. Yes, Meat Balls, Gursey, T-Man Cash, Ziggy, Gitley, Will Dockerall, Mr. Tiger, Colonel Cabbage, what up? Undead Ben. I was going to paint Scarbrand specifically just for Undead Ben, but then I opted against it. And that just was a monkey wants to kill off the firstborn. Nick, what do you think of that? Do you think?
Really?
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Well, I would like them to do some sort of Civil War style, where all the firstborn sort of split off and like get sick of this Primaris shit, go and start their own Imperiums elsewhere.
Yeah,
that would be cool. And I think that was actually, I don't know, I can't remember who speculated that, but I think Scrivo said that was a theory either he had or someone else had, that a different Primarch was going to come back. Let's say like the Dark Angels one, Lionel Johnson, he was going to maybe come back and he'd be on the other side of the rift that was in the middle of the solar system, so the galaxy that was splitting the Imperium. So the dark side of the Imperium that had been cut off from the Emperor's Light and Gulliman and all the Primaris stuff. I think there was like speculation that they could just sort of form their own Imperium, and obviously they wouldn't have Primaris Marines, they'd have all the firstborn stuff. And they might, Gulliman and Lionel Johnson could disagree and have a bit of a fight, maybe have a bit of a civil war. I think that would be a really cool storyline for them to go down, and give them more narrative reasons to give like the firstborn different rules and different abilities or traits than the Primaris Marines. So that would be quite cool to see. But what I hope it doesn't, if they did that, I would hope it wouldn't be, and obviously it would be, a campaign supplement with extra rules in. just so they can sell more books, as they love to do.
Oh, they love selling a book, don't they?
They love a book.
Love a book.
Love a good book.
Oh, they just sit around all day, just going, "Can we make that a book?" That's the real question.
Yeah, it's like, I've got a book for you, boss. Right, okay, so you got three different bits of rules in there. Right, let's chop it up into three different books, and sell each one for £20.
Perfect. Just love a good book, boss. That's what we want. Yeah. I've written one book, but can that book be 3 books? It's kind of the exact opposite of filmmakers. They're like, hey, we've written 4 books. We want to make them into like 4 films. And the filmmaker's like, but can we just do that in 1 film? That's all we want. That's all we want. We don't want extended story or interested storylines. Was a Monkey says, we know it's coming. I just want the stand messing around. I think he's talking about getting rid of getting rid of all Marines. I think he just wants it done. I think that's the point, right? We all thought it was coming, and it just never did.
Yeah. Like it's a weird. It feels like a little bit of a weird U-turn because obviously since the Primaris came out, they have basically ignored the fact that all Marines exist and given them a little bit of lip service every now and then with some rules. And obviously all the codexes apply to them, but the best armies have always included all the new Primaris stuff, and the new Primaris stuff that's been released has always been more points efficient than other codex stuff and the internal stuff within their own codex, like the old Marines. With 1 or 2 exceptions, like obviously like Primaris Smash Captains or just normal Smash Captains are always been good. Scouts have always had a bit of a role in most people's lists, but predominantly, it's been like intercessors, repulsor executioners, and those kind of units that a lot of people have gravitated towards, and like eliminators, and now the new melter gun guys. I can't remember what they're called, but everyone's spamming them. So this going back to the old Marines having 2 wounds feels like a strange bit of a U-turn. Like, is it just one little boost to old Marines that they're doing and then leaving it, just to keep people happy, to make sure that their old collection is slightly more valid than it previously was? Or is it a new direction they decided to go in? And like we said earlier, it would be really cool if they did split the Primaris Marines off into the new Marines, the Gugan Marines, and then there's like the other section of Marines, the old school Marines, who are like either within the same faction or warring against each other. Like, it'd be interesting to see when the new Marine Codex comes out, whether they've split them or it's just a little bit of a boost to keep people happy for now.
Yeah. Also, because all of the major characters are being Primarisized, right? They're going across the Rubicon Primaris. So we're already conscious that like they're changing like the lore characters, but the 14 Dead Souls does make a really good point in the chat in that they've said, at the end of the day, Marines are like they're baked into the 40k lore. Like little Marines, firstborn Marines are baked into the 40k lore. If you get rid of, them, then you're getting rid of, like, if you take any of the current kind of like narrative, like Gaunt's Ghosts or like anything that happens at Hell's Reach or any of that sort of stuff, it hasn't got any Primaris Marines in. So if you were to read that stuff, let's say they discontinued Marines tomorrow. If you discontinued that stuff, then these people wouldn't be able to play with the Marines of that period, if that makes sense. Which is kind of odd, like for people to be a part of, I think. Marines being squatted is a conspiracy theory based entirely on our paranoia. But it also makes sense. Like, there's been nothing to make us think that... Because there's been nothing new to support little Marines, has there? So
not really. And, there's no models for them, but the Thunder Warriors are part of 40k lore. And they're a really cool part of the 40k lore, that they came as part of the Unification Wars on Terra when the Emperor made them all to conquer Earth, but then he killed them all off, didn't he?
He did.
So
he loves killing people off.
Yeah, he loves killing a whole race of warriors off. Is that because that could be just foreshadowing him trying to kill off all the firstborn Marines? Is it history repeating itself? He's used the Thunder Warriors to conquer Earth, killed them all off. He's used the Space Marines to all but conquer the
fail
galaxy.
Miserably. No, fail miserably.
Yeah. failed miserably, but now is he just going to kill them all off again? Yeah, exactly. Like Mavnan in the chat, he's going to execute Order 66, kill them all off, but all the main characters will survive.
I mean, if we were in charge, we would execute Order 69.
Oh yeah. Way better.
Way better.
Tom's naked custodies would be a key in that plan.
Right. Well, so it's good that we kind of started on the conversation about Marines, because obviously we're going to have a conversation about objective secured units today. I want to say, before I do so, I want to say a big shout out to everyone that's working on Patreon. Couldn't survive without you. Thank you for subscribing, like whoever you might be. Well, I know who you are specifically, but just all of you. You guys are great. And of course, thank you to my Hydro homies, the Podcast Bros. Thanks for sticking with me, even though I've struggled to get the podcast out this week. So thanks. You guys are great. So yeah, Nick, something you like in 40k terms is something you don't think that you have, we've talked about much on the show so far.
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about primaries and secondaries. It's not just us. I mean, everyone's talking about the primaries because that's one of the most important things about this new edition, scoring those primaries and obviously the secondaries as well. And I don't think we've touched on it much on the show. Objective secured. So let's talk about OBSEC. Let's talk about OBSECs.
Let's talk about OBSECs, baby. Let's talk about objectives and me. Let's talk about.
There you go. You got it.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
So objective secured is a rule that predominantly troops have if your detachment or army is battle forged. So it basically means that if you have an objective secured model on an objective, you will automatically win that objective if your opponent doesn't have an objective secured unit. So it's like a trump card, if that terminology helps people get their head around it. But if you both have objective secured, then it goes down to the number of models on the objective, not the number of objective secured models, which I think is something that some people get wrong sometimes. And obviously that's really important for the new primaries scoring, because I think it's a really good way to deny people. So a lot of the conversation in the minute is around going first wins you the game, because you can jump on the primaries early, you can shoot your opponent first. This is assuming they've not hid their entire army, and you get the last chance. So you go first in the last battle round to be able to shoot your opponent off their primaries, so they can't score in their last turn, which I think is some of the main issues with the going first. But I think objective secured is really key, is possibly more important for denying objectives, I think. I think there's a lot of play in that, because if your opponent goes first, if you've got fast moving units that have an objective secured rule, so your opponent might just throw like some Terminators, like Death Guard Terminators are quite prevalent at the minute. You might have some Death Guard Terminators or some Death Shroud Terminators or any units like that that aren't troops on an objective. And if you can get an objective secured unit onto that, just even one model will deny your opponent scoring that primary. And that's pretty big to could not only score your own, but to deny your opponent can cause quite a big swing in those primary points. So I think, just objective secured units are going to be really important for that role. And whether that, because so in most armies they're troops, but there are certain armies that can sort of get around that. So like Custodes, their entire army, I think infantry and dreadnoughts, have the objective secured rule, which is really, really strong. And there's some other obscure like warlord traits. I think the Chaos Knights have a warlord trait which gives them one of their knights objective secured. I think there's a few others like that, and orcs have the Death Skulls clan or culture, I can't remember what it's called, and that gives all their infantry objective secured. I don't think it's I looked at trying to build a list for Death Skulls to sort of try and use that rule a lot, but the problem I think with orcs is that at the minute their infantry and stuff isn't particularly points efficient when you compare it to everything else, or particularly Marines. Because like a Primaris Marine is 20 points, so it's 2 wounds, a toughness 4, a 3-up save, and that is like the same. So you get 2.5 orcs for that, and it's just nowhere near as survivable um, for
Yeah,
securing objectives.
yeah. I think in this situation, like especially with objective secured stuff, you end up looking at your list and actually asking yourself, like, it's a bit like the battle line conversation in Age of Sigmar. You look at your list, or you look at your faction and you ask, actually, is the way I'm building it like a good example would be Marines, I think. Like, well, I mean, it's the most obvious example in that with Marines, you could build a bunch of vehicles. So you could buy a bunch of dreadnoughts, or a bunch of repulsors, or whatever the case might be. You could do a bunch of that and lean into, I want the tanks for fire support, or whatever it might be. But if you just run towards intercessors, or like already their objective secured troops choices, you end up. I don't think the tanks are at OBSEC, are they? No, they're not. So, but you, hey, Chuckle Buddy. So you end up like, it skews the lists to work towards the OBSEC units. Like, does that make sense? Like, so you look at the list design, especially with something as wide as Marines, and you think, I could take some land speeders because I know they're really good, or whatever the situation might be, any of the non-OBSEC units. But you think, actually, I should build the list out of good OBSEC units. It's like in an Age of Sigmar list where like battle line are really strong, and you think, well, I'll just lean into the battle line anyway because I already have to spend points in there. I might as well add in additional strength into those core units, and that normally works really well. That's why I think that's another reason I think that Marines are so strong, because their OBSEC units are the power pieces in that book, effectively, and they're tough to shift, and it's going to be a terrifying time. I mean, when Plague Marines are going to be sat on there with 2 wounds, they are really good, right?
So I just think in this edition, durable units that have OBSEC are the best units. Just because, like we spoke about a lot, primary is important. And if you need to be able to survive, sit there and survive a turn. You need to get there, sit there, survive a turn, and be durable. But then also, if you have the objective secured rule, that secures you against other people having OBSEC units as well. Because I think a lot of people are taking things like I looked at some events recently that were won, and Death Guard are winning quite a lot. But I looked at those lists, and a lot of the lists include like Plague Burst Crawlers, those Malefic Blight Haulers, Terminators, Nurglings, which are troops. So and like a few Plague Marine units. So there's not that many objective secured units out there. So someone might have like a Plague Burst Crawler sat on an objective, or some Blight Haulers on an objective, but which is strong, durable units that can put out some good damage. But what is so good about 40k Ninth now, it's a lot less about killing, it's about objectives. So if you even get one single grot onto that objective with the Malefic Blight Hauler, that grot's going to deny that objective and probably not score it. It won't survive, but I think it's at least denying that primary, which is huge.
Yeah, it's something I need to think about more in my 40k list writing. Definitely is the OBSEC units and where to put them in my list. And also, the other problem is I think, again, if you compare the Orc Boys to Marine situation, is some OBSEC units are just so much better than the other OBSEC units. Like 3-up save Marines versus T-shirt save Boys are like, they want to stand there on objectives, but they can't do that job. Like, they just can't. They're not as survivable, just like you've said. So you're in this situation where...
And Marines are also way better for that role because you have more toughness and models condensed into a smaller unit, so a smaller footprint. So 5 Marines point for point compared to the equivalent number of boys for that many points of Marines. So I think that's 5 Marines is like 100 points. So it'd be like 10 or 12 boys. So you can hide 5 Marines out of line of sight a lot more easy than Orc Boys, because it's a larger footprint. So they can take more advantage of those obscuring terrain rules and things like that, and fit into like an area terrain to get an extra bonus to their cover save. So Marines are better than Orcs for that reason as well.
The Eldari units, Colonel Cabbage is talking about witches, like Guardians and those sorts of units. Like, it's actually really interesting when you talk about any, like, being able to, like, trump card with OBSEC. Because I actually, thinking about it now, I think it really shuts down the design space and is potentially a bit of a negative in that you end up not necessarily, like, if your OBSEC units just aren't as strong as the other OBSEC units, you just lose because they just can't survive as well as the other OBSEC units, right? It's a bit of a shame. Hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, it's like Colonel Cabbage saying in the chat. Like, I think Dark Eldar infantry got hit quite hard with the generic applying of rules increases that they did when they refreshed the edition. Like, it's just an example in the chat. Like a Dark Eldar witch is I'm not sure which witch he's talking about, but
Which witch?
A witch is 11 points. And it's like T3 6-up save, but they do have a 4+ in combat. But really, if you're having a troop unit and you want to sit an objective, you're going to take ranged firepower most often, which you need to be more resilient to. So your 4+ combat invuln isn't going to do anything for that, is it? And I think similarly, like the generic Cabalite warriors, they're like T3 5-up save, and they're quite a lot of points as well. I think they're probably slightly more than an Orc boy. I don't know how much, it's like 10 or something like that as well. So yeah, they're just nowhere near as survivable as Marines are. And I know there's probably a lot of Marine moaning going on here, but
it's not. It's just it's the baseline to talk about, right?
Yeah, and they've been strong ever since sort of the last codex. I genuinely really hope that this codex sort of brings them down a bit, so we don't have to moan about them so much.
I don't know. I think is it just troop type units, Kalbar? No. So what's really interesting about objective secured units is they can be different depending on which codex they're in. Traditionally, though, it's normally the troop choices.
Yeah, 90% of the time, I think it's the troop choices, but there are some exceptions. Yeah, like we said, so there's a few warlord traits, and I think there's a few other like cultures. I think someone in the chat said that Genestealer cult have an object culture, I think, as well. And the custodies, they're all dreadnought and infantry objective secured. So again, I think that's another reason why custodies are really, really good in this edition, because they're tough, they're durable, they've got some fast units to go and capture farther away objectives, and then they're all objective secured. So even their characters and stuff like that.
I mean, Chuckleberry makes a great point in the chat. He says, Battleline so this is in Age of Sigmar, isn't really as important as in Age of Sigmar because you can build... so it is... Oh, it isn't really important. No, it is really important, in my opinion. I don't know if we're agreeing now. Sorry. In AOS, because you can build armies without having to spend any points on troops. So effectively, like, if you're taking Khorne, for example, you could have Bloodletters as your battle line, but you can make someone else your general, and then you end up... So if you take a Juggernaut, like a Herald on Juggernaut, you're able to then take the Juggernauts of Khorne as your battle line instead. So I would quite like to see that. I wouldn't mind, like, especially for some CP. So you spend some CP, like, or you pick a particular warlord, and then you end up with different obsec, like for example, if you took Mortarion, then your Terminators become objective secure because they're his elite first company. They have something pretty similar in Heresy actually, where you have they have different, how there's like first company, second company, third company. So they have like different kind of structures, and you end up with different tactics and stuff. But that would be a nice way to see different Marine lists without like having to force your hand into particular obsec things. So like you could have like a Tech Marine be a warlord, but then all of your vehicles then have got obsec, so which is cool. But it doesn't mean that intercessors still keep it. Like they just move where obsec goes in. That'd be fun.
Yeah, because that allows people to make more thematic armies, because you take a certain general, unlocks other battle line units that are more thematic to that general to be chosen as battle line, which is really cool. So there's some examples of that for chaos. So if you are Emperor's Children, Noise Marines go from elites to troops, so they get objectives secured. And I think there's the same for like World Eaters, or I can't remember. Well, yeah, World Eaters, I think it is, which makes Khorne Berserkers uh, battle, troops, and they get obsec. Um, so it'd be cool for more things like that. Like, so I'm thinking about my Elder army. So I've made a themed Wraith army. So I've got two Wraith Seers and some units of Wraith Guard in Wave Serpents. So it's like themed around Wraiths on the whole. But that army really struggles because it has no objective secured. So one Marine getting an objective will outscore my 5 Wraith Guard, which is a bit of a shame to have a pretty massive disadvantage for taking a themed list. So maybe it will be cool to say, yeah, like if my Wraith Seer is my general, then that either makes Wraiths. I don't think they necessarily make them troops, but like you say, give that themed army a chance of having objective secured. That'd be quite cool.
Yeah. Well, so nice to see Pete in the chat also agrees with the concept of using the heresy as a kind of a situation there. Yeah. So and Age Semar is making a good point as well. Also, like having specific units be objective secured means that your target priority changes when you're playing against that army. So the threat might be the thing that you're shooting against, but you end up having to deal with the obsec units first because they're going to just outscore you or score on the objective or whatever the situation might be. So it's actually it adds a layer of tactics, but I also think it really truncates lists in a way. Make winning a theme. We could do that, absolutely. That works. And the question from MJ Pegasus is, my question is, will each new codex release provide what's required to balance this out better? I don't think it... I wouldn't say it's really an issue. It's just more something to be aware of, right?
What objective secure?
Yeah. Do you think it's an issue?
I don't think it's a problem at all. No, I don't think so. I just think it's a cool part of the game that you can try to use to your advantage. Yeah.
So Double Soren says, I actually like the idea that the actual troops are the ones with obsec, mostly because it gives you a reason to have the less optimal choices a lot of the time, unless your troops end up being the good things.
Because again, I think going back to the Marine moaning, that troops are generally seen as a bit of a tax. Like Battle Line, they're standard troops, and you have to have them, so it's almost like a tax so you can take the list. And like before 8th edition, like there was like the force organization chart you had to have 1 to 2 HQ and minimum 3 troops. So generally troops are worse than your elites, heavies, etc. So they are seen as a bit of a tax. I would say that's true for most armies because they're not as good, but for Marines, they just happen to be really, really good units as well, like intercessors, particularly for Iron Hands with Ferios. So they've got a 5-up invuln, they've got objective secured, they've got a 6-up DPR, and they could have a 5-up DPR with a particular warlord trait. So yeah, they are almost the perfect 9th edition unit because they're durable, they hit pretty hard in combat, hit pretty good in shooting, and they sit on objectives well. The only thing they don't do, intercessors, is fly and go across the board fast. That's like the only thing they don't do.
Like the only thing. I actually I'm really glad months later we've worked it out that Marines are a good option for you guys out there. In case you were wondering, in case you were like, what do I take? Don't tell anyone. We'll keep it a secret amongst all of us. Yeah. Oh, unless you put them in impulsors, then yes, they do fly. Sorry.
Yes, good call.
Sorry, but you can't buy impulsors. They've been sold out for like months, right? I think has been the science. I think everyone in the world wants themselves an impulsor, which is fine. I quite like those models more than I prefer anyone else. I want jump pack intercessors now. Yeah. I see that. I don't know how to apply that to all of the armies, the obsec conversation, Nick, but I'm sure some people do, or at least can think it through. I like how it adds to the narrative bent of the game on the table, though. I do like the idea of objectives generally, in 40k or in any of the games. I feel like battlefields work like that, and the concept of watching a game specifically, because I oftentimes now think about games as how they're going to be watched necessarily as to how they're going to be played. I mean, obviously playing them as well, but I am a little bit obsessed with the watching of games at the minute because of obviously all the coverage and stuff that we plan to do. So yeah. I do feel like the objective secured units add like a really nice narrative element to the whole proceedings, more so than if it was just any old unit, right?
How so?
Well, so like I'll give you a good example. I'll give you a great example, in fact. I feel like OBSEC should be something that's kind of like maybe given out a bit more thematically. As an example, I don't think Storm Boys or Scouts, maybe Scouts. What I mean is OBSEC should go to units that you think would go and hold an objective. Does that make sense? So
yeah.
Like, so you wouldn't have, so someone I think mentioned it earlier in the chat, you wouldn't give OBSEC, for instance, to Khorne Berserkers.
No, yeah, they're not going to care about anything apart from butchering people up, aren't they?
Yeah, so like, and I know that they would probably get it in their book, but I think I'd like to see it narratively placed in different places. And that also apply on the tabletop. I think you could have some real fun with making stuff like more like OBSEC-y, if that makes sense, or OBSEC +1, for instance. Like each one of these particular units is worth, I don't know, +2. So like, does that make sense? I just think that's a fun little element.
Yeah, there is a rule for, I think, Imperial or Crimson Fists, where there's like a warlord trait that makes everyone within 6 of him objective secured and then counters twice as many models. So there is some sort of rule like that.
Yeah. I think that would be really fun. So, EDS Knight, big love to you, said in the chat, I think OBSEC should be given out like Scout, Move, Infiltrate, not just all troops. So just, it should be like more of a specific rule. Or maybe even
it could be a keyword, could be, a specific rule like that, yeah.
Or something that you like give out in CP, which I think would be interesting. Like we said with the heresy stuff, you know, if you had different companies, then different units would end up with OBSEC. I think that's a really fun thing that they could move around. Having had this conversation, thanks for bringing it up, I hadn't really ever thought about that before, but now I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be really fun. That'd be a great way of doing it, right?
Yeah. T-Man Cash in the chat, he said he's sold on the idea of making it a stratagem. So like so is that like a pre-game stratagem that you could spend 1 CP to make a unit objective secured, or is that a stratagem that you'd spend in the phase to make them objective secured?
A bit like an order.
Pre-game. So he's saying he likes the idea of a pre-game one.
Well, that's interesting. So you just pick a unit and you're like, these are objective secure. Yeah, because you would. Like, that's what you would do as a...
yeah, you're like you squad. You are in charge of getting around, flanking the opposition and setting up some traps or whatever. Don't do that mission kind of thing.
Yeah, and you guys are out there to go smash face. Like, yes, boss, off we go. Yeah, man. Like, I think that would actually be really fun. That'd be a really nice addition to the game in a load of ways. And again, it would add a different like layer of tactics. Like if your army, or if who you were facing was going to definitely deal with your big death unit, then you wouldn't give objective secured them. You give it to a different unit whose job was to just go and hold it. I think would be really fun. Something like a commissar would be a good unit. It says Couch Warrior 3000 that could boost an OBSEC or give OBSEC to a unit and then take it. And don't. That's fun. That's fun. Like an order you dish out as well. A bit like a command ability. That could be fun. You're OBSEC now.
Yeah, I really do think that we're going to like because I played a good doubles game last night, and it was just a bit of a fun game. But we were talking about the new codex that's coming out, because there's not a lot that you do in the command phase now, is there?
That's true.
So it's the new hero phase that Age of Sigmar has had ever since its inception. Now we've got a command phase, and so far all you do is collect 1 CP, and at the end score your primary points. That's all you do in the command phase right now. But I'm pretty certain that in the new codexes that are coming out, we're going to see more abilities, and I'm sure they've referenced to this in some of the articles that they've done. We're going to see more abilities that happen in the command phase, like from your warlord. Or captains and lieutenants and stuff like that you could dish out to units. So maybe a cool one would be to do, your warlord issues orders to this unit and gives them the obsec rule. That'd be kind of cool.
That'd be awesome. Like, yeah,
Mm.
I'm really into that. I think that would be. I think that's fun. Like, I'd like to see, because I also think that there's like a lot more space that they could. Like, you're right, because when you do a stratagem, it's like you. Like, I don't want to be. I don't want to get too fruity on it, but I will anyway, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go down this rabbit hole. The agency, when you spend the CP, is I'm doing it. But when I spend a command ability, or when I do a command ability in Age of Sigmar, my guy's doing it. I'm like, he's going to use his command ability on them.
Yeah.
Does that, like, so it's more in game, and so I feel like the stratagems, if they could be somehow tied, or more importantly, like tied to the units instead of it being less me, more the characters. It brings the characters to life a little bit more, I think. And I think that that's actually an important part of what we do. Because I know sometimes they're just pieces to people or figures, but they are like it does come alive if the game designer helps it come alive.
Yeah, so like the idea of my warlord on the battlefield, he issues the command rather than just this omnipresent being that's floating above the battlefield dishing orders to units randomly.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like I like that idea. Like, yeah, because the minute we feel like it feels a bit hand of goddy, whereas I think having more agency for the models is actually quite cool. I think that's fun. As Ziggy said, a bit like War Machine, where the caster is the one actually doing the orders and strategy, not you. Which is, I agree with that. And also, Pete Pratt makes a great point in the chat. Kind of feel like banner units, like Ancients, introduced into every army were a good way of putting obsec bubbles on the board, so you rally to defend the banner. So, like, anyone within, like, 6 inches of the banner gets objective secured, which is a fun little, like, element. Like, this is the fun thing about the game, is there are loads of ways for them to improve, change up the game, at least, so that there's more exciting things to on the tabletop. I think it's actually the game's in a really good place because there are loads of things that they could do. Like, it doesn't feel, apart from stratagems, which I feel are it's a bit heavy, like it's a bit booky, just having all the stratagems and all that. I feel like there's a way to do it a little bit better. But apart from that, the game itself structurally seems really sound to add stuff on and make it better.
Yeah, defo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Look at me. I'm the Smash Captain. All strategies become like generic command abilities, bring in AOS only with X of character. Yeah, I would quite like that.
Yeah, I think I've been for a while a proponent of quite like stratagems, but I would prefer that they were to be more unit specific. Because there's like a good example, I think, is the Space Marine Intercessors. The Intercessor unit has like 3 different stratagems based on what gun you have. Whereas you could very easily just incorporate that rule onto their datasheet. So, because it's only able to be used, it's a stratagem, and there's loads of stratagems that are very unit specific that you could just make a unit ability, just like it is on AOS now. Well, I think that's how it is, isn't it? Lots of so you hear, but it's on hero data, war scrolls. Like Dave said, so it'd be cool to have the intercessor spreadsheet, data slate. It has that ability on there, but you can only activate it if it is, issued by your warlord in the command phase or whatever, or it's just on the data slate and they can just use it, rather than having all these separate stratagems you got to look through and apply to your army. I quite like the idea of having those rules incorporated onto the sheets.
Yeah, as do I. Yeah, I'm with you absolutely. I think that I also wouldn't mind seeing something like a bit like with Ossiarch Bone Reapers, which I think is an interesting way of going about it. Is you have the stratagems, like you say, on the datasheet, and you spend the CP on. So you still have the CP resource, but the stratagem is baked in. So instead of it just being an always on ability, you have to like activate them to make them power up.
Yeah, and I think so. A thing that I think you definitely spoke about it before. One criticism that you've leveled at 40k is that, quite a lot of units, you just be like, I'm going to do this stratagem, this stratagem, this stratagem, this stratagem, and this stratagem. I'm going to do 10 stratagems on this one unit to make it amazing in one particular phase. Whereas I think if you separate if you get rid of all the separate stratagems, bake them into the data slates and the commanders, you can still have combos. So you can like, right, I'm going to activate my intercessor stratagem, but then also my captain is going to put his ability on that unit to create that combo. So you can kind of limit it a little bit to the units and characters that you have in your armor list and on the board and their position as well on the table, rather than just having I've got a unit out there on its own, but I can apply a million buffs to it from these stratagems that don't really have any range. I think that would be I would like that would be quite a cool direction for them to go in, and we've kind of seen that, like we said already, with AOS kind of moving in that direction.
Yeah. I'd like. Well, I'm with you. I think I'd like to see that. Another question we've had in the chat, which I think is a really fun one, from Ziggy. He said, "Would we?" I think it was from Ziggy.
Lookout serval.
Yeah, do you want to read it out just so the podcast guys know what you said?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a tangent, but I like the lookout servals in 40k. What do you think about them porting over to AOS? I also really like the new character rules in 40k. So the new character rules are you can't target a character if it is within 3 inches of a infantry unit with 3 or more wounds, or a non-character vehicle, or a character vehicle with 10 or more wounds, as long as it's not closer to the enemy than that unit. Which means you can't just like leave characters out in the middle of your backfield on their own but untargetable. So I think it's a really, really great change. It means characters are more in danger. You got to position them much better, and you can't just use them as free screens and impossible to shoot screens. It works similar to the AOS rule, right? Because there's like a 3-inch rule is the same.
Yep.
But it's just a -1 to hit, right?
Just a -1 to hit,
rather than not being targetable.
I think not being targetable is good, because that's normally affected in the shooting phase. There's a lot more like magic output in Age of Sigmar than there is in 40k, so which kind of makes sense, I guess. But then normally you're able to kind of get around it with some sort of like magic attack in some situations, but not all the time. I think 40k really needed that and has needed that the entire time, because just the volume of shooting is obviously so significant. Obviously, there's a lot of shooting happening now in Age of Sigmar as well, but ultimately, like Pete says, some characters I think will become obnoxious. Some armies will become obnoxious if you can't deal with their characters. And also, the Age of Sigmar, kind of works around the characters, which I feel like generalmanship, or like the warlord or the general, is obviously very important in 40k, depending on the army. But if you lose a Space Marine captain, the other Space Marines aren't just like, oh no. Whereas, like, well, I guess it doesn't really apply. If you lose the Demon Prince that is like pushing all of the Khorne Bloodbound forward, I feel like maybe they'd start to like fall back a little bit or not fight as well.
Get a bit nervous.
Yeah, I feel like maybe Khorne's a bad example, but I think, if the Bray Shaman dies, I reckon all the Gors are like, screw this. Whereas the Orcs, if the War Boss guys, they're like, zog him, he's an idiot, like, off we go, we'll carry on fighting, is my general thoughts. Whereas if all the Orcs are dead, the Gretchen are like, screw this, we're off. Like, so I don't know how you feel about that. I just feel like leaders aren't maybe as important in 40k, like, not from a general's perspective. Not sure if that's right, but that's how I feel.
I think narratively, like, Space Marine captain goes down, they still have comms from the rest of that, the battle barge that's in space or whatever like that, where it's on a fantasy battlefield, there's not that level of technology, so morale is more important, I guess. So if your leader went down, it's more likely to cause morale of the troops to go down. They might run away.
No one wants to be... Go on, please continue.
I was going to say, I think in AOS, I don't play AOS as much as I used to, so I don't know the game state as well as guys in chat and you, but I think, well, characters. I think if you were able to hide characters and not be, yeah, I think it would because they give out more buffs, don't they? So you need to be able to have counterplay. If you can't kill the character and it's just dishing out buffs and damage all day long, then it might cause more
However,
negative play
yeah,
experiences.
however, like you said, new codexes, new rules, new
Mm,
characters in the command phase doing more things.
yeah,
That the rise of dominance of not being able to shoot characters might be a very important thing. You know, when we're doing the roles sort of breakdown of codexes on the 40k show, one of those ones is character suppression that we talk about, and some
hmm
armies just don't have the ability to do really solid character suppression. So in the
no,
future, that lookout sir rule actually might be, I know it's already important, but it might be more dominant in your ability to have a really strong buff, but also not be able to like have your character, like some armies struggle to deal with suppressing that particular character, like orcs struggle generally to do that. Actually, that's a really fascinating future that we could end up with, right?
mm, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. Indomitus is super character heavy. Maybe we are going to see
It
rise of the characters
is,
because they want to
but
sell us
is that,
loads
but is
of.
that?
Go on.
I was gonna say, is that because that's the direction that the game is heading in, and they're like want to prepare people who bought the Indomitus bots to say, yeah, no, there's gonna be more characters dishing out orders and stratagems and abilities and things like that, or is it that they just love making Space Marine characters and they just got carried away making Space Marine
Well,
characters?
actually, I've got a counterpoint to that because one of the things. So I was getting a little bit excited about Chaos Space Marines the other day. Don't worry about, when you just go one of those things like maybe, and the answer is
Mm,
one day I will, but
yeah.
not this day. But the Masters of Ruin, which is their there's like a bundle they have on the shop, which is basically just 5 absolutely baller characters, look great. But that's 5. So there must have been maybe 5 or 6, maybe even 7 or 8 Space Marine characters. Chaos Space Marine characters during the Chaos Space Marine launch. There were loads, and they were all just like Master of Ruin or like some other like random thing. They were all. Do
Yeah,
you
there's
see?
like
You
an
know the ones I mean?
executioner dude, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was like, and now there's a kind of executioner. There was a executioner version in the Marine book as well, isn't there? Like, which is they're kind of comparable, is what I'm trying to say. And you and me are
Yeah.
pretty certain that Chaos Space Marine book was meant to be a 9th edition book. Like that box set was meant to be the start of 9th edition, and then
Mm,
they screwed it off and were like, we'll do something different instead.
yeah.
Yeah. So I wouldn't attach intent of character dominance in Indomitus. They're a modeling company. Everything else follows without logic or planning. Agreed.
hmm
But they generally
Yeah.
might have been a push down from top down to be like, hey, dudes, we want to push into characters. It also, if you want it to be really clever, which I do, yeah. They do make more They do make more money selling characters. But if you look at the future of Games Workshop, obviously they're producing all of these, what are they called? All of these cartoons that they're going to be producing at some point. And we know that they're going to be moving into movies and TV shows. So it makes sense because your random squad of dudes isn't as important as your range of characters.
Mm,
And so it kind of makes sense that they lean into producing at least a solid environment of characters for people to create stories from,
yeah.
if that makes sense.
And
Yeah.
get attached to.
Yeah, and get
Be like,
attached
oh,
to.
he's
And
my favorite character.
yeah, exactly. So I think, oh, wait, if you're about to start making TV shows, Scott B and me, same fucking page. Yes, Scott B. Yeah, and Kuro Cabbage characters have bigger margins, comics also. So I was thinking this during Marvel Talk yesterday's Diadrin. Oh, okay, so we were all actually on the same page. So actually, that kind of makes a ton of sense when you start thinking it through, that characters are going to
Mm.
push to the fore. There's also a lot of characters in the Necron range.
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of characters.
In fact, actually, look at all the preview stuff that we've seen this year. There's been like some random character from Black Library, these 2 characters from Black Library. They released like, during the preview shows, we saw like 5, 6 different character models all the time. Like, look at the...
Yeah, and almost every like Psychic Awakening book had a character attached to it. Like the War of the Spider had Fabulous Bill. The last one had that Inquisitor. I can't remember the other ones now. Well, not all of them had a character associated to them, but like Saga the Beast had Gazgul and Ragnar.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yes, they are. Yeah.
Battlechode says, taking the Marvel approach, throwing characters at us until one sticks and they can get that Hollywood franchise.
Yeah. I was going to ask, like, who do we reckon is going to be the first? Who would be the first Warhammer character to ignite a cinematic universe for Games Workshop? Who's going to be the
Ooh.
Iron Man of 40k?
A 40k? That's the problem, though, because
Or
of...
is it?
I don't know, because you can't do someone like Gulliman. Like, they can't do that. They almost need to, like, do it the other way, where they have a human being experiencing it all around them. I think.
Yeah.
Mephisto. A major difference is Marvel are really good at road mapping their films. Games Workshop can't road map an app that they're making in-house.
No. Or an edition release. And not a lot.
Everyone likes vampires. That's true. Going to be an Inquisitor and just rip off Judge Dredd. Yeah, but Dredd is very different to a regular Inquisitor. Inquisitors are more like inquisitorial, I guess is the wrong word. So we know that they're doing an Eisenhorn, right? But
yeah.
I feel that they'd be better off doing random human beings in the world and have the characters be background characters. Because they're so... You couldn't do an Eldrad. It's too... Unless they went, like, all money in. If they just were like... they went like Dude franchise. They're like, we're just throwing all of our fucking money at it. Then you could. But Malkador, Ragnar Saga could be a serial movie.
And I think you could like. So I haven't read many Black Library books, but one I read when I was really young is the Ragnar Blackmane books for Space Wolf. So it follows him being a human and then being indoctrinated into the Space Wolves. So you could start off by following a character who gets turned into a Space Marine. That'd be quite a cool way of introducing people, like what they go through, and what it takes or involves becoming a Space Marine.
I'm with Pete. I actually think Necromunda would be one of the better, like, because they could occasionally dip into like the larger franchise.
Yeah. I think they'd want. I don't know. I can't see them doing an Necromunda. I think it would be cool.
Yeah, I'm with you. They're going to do some Ultramarine poster boy, right? They're never going to stray away from that, which is why, like, if you look at the Marvel thing, we just lost Nick a sec. If you look at the Marvel comic that they've done, they've obviously just leaned straight into Calgar. Like, you couldn't go more Ultramarine and poster boy than having a bit of Calgar on the shot.
But
hey, Nick.
I'm back, I think.
Yeah, you are. I was just saying that they couldn't get more serious. They couldn't get more like poster boy than doing Calgar for the Marvel comic.
And
so I think you're just going to see a bit more of that all the time, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they're just. Yeah, they want to market the Space Marines because everyone loves Space Marines.
Apparently.
Yeah,
I think that they would.
But would it be cool if they did like a Space Marine origin story, gets Space Marine, but then they follow through, and then he eventually becomes Chaos.
Oh, that's fun! Like he falls to Chaos eventually.
Yeah, you could see. Yeah, then they could. That's where they could bring in like the Chaos side of things. Like they could have the Space Marines fighting whatever orcs or Eldar, whoever. But then like drop in that character slowly getting corrupted by Chaos and stuff like that.
Oh, that's really fun. They could make us they could really humanize the character and just be like, oh look, we're all humans. Like he's experiencing rage. Like we would experience rage too under those circumstances, but like giving in and then they could be like a cold, really inhuman character, but he's a human who just is like being really like controlled with their emotions. And then you're like, I hate that guy, but then eventually our rage guy becomes a monster, and the control guy's like, oh, makes sense. You got to be serious, otherwise, you're gonna get a chaos god up your bum, taking control of your body, which you don't want.
Yeah,
generally,
no one wants Nurgle up there.
Yeah.
Maybe Slanesh, but not Nurgle.
And also, I mean, they could just do the Horus Heresy. They could just spend the money, but that's a big undertaking, right? All right, well, Nick, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
And hanging out and hanging out during day 168. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out and talking to us. Don't forget, for 169 tomorrow, it's going to be very fun. Big show. I might just get Nathan Prescott on the show with me. And then, yeah, it's been lovely talking to everyone. Thank you to everyone on the Patreon. Thank you to everyone, obviously, on the podcast and everyone live. Nick, have you got any shout-outs?
I'd like to give a shout-out to Guernsey.
Guernsey? What, is this French Gozzy?
I think they're cousins or brothers or something.
Okay.
Shout out to Guernsey.
I'd like to shout out Ghazi.
Oh, is he the Australian brother?
Yeah. Yeah. Show needs to be nice. Yeah. Anyway, it's been a pleasure talking to everyone. Thank you for being here. We'll see you all tomorrow. Have a nice day. Take care of yourselves. See you soon. Bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye.